My name's Rowan, I use they and pronouns. I'm 25, turned February College 11 graduate. And we're really excited to have Mohsen here with us today. I'm with co-fired in the Palestine Solidarity Coalition. I'm going to give you guys a brief run of show for today. So we are very excited to have Mohsen here with us to tell us more about his story and his experiences dealing with the Trump administration and with Palestine advocacy here in the Upper Valley and beyond. And then we're going to have some pre-written questions from student activists, and then we'll open it up to the rest of you to ask Mohsen more questions. And although he needs no introduction, Ramsey is going to give him a brief introduction.
Hello everyone, how are we doing?
All right.
How's the confusion? Okay, so first off, my name is Ramsey Al-Sheikh. I'm a senior, 26, he, him, I organize for the Palestine Solidarity Coalition, and can I just say I'm very excited for the event we have today. It's been a long time since PSC has had really like a full-on, very like red carpet sort of event, and we definitely need to roll out the red carpet for an esteemed activist such as Mohsen Mahdawi. Even just going over the highlight reel of his career, I feel a little weird describing it as if he's a sports star. But his activism career, really it's kind of incredible, and I think we'll all be able to take something valuable away to learn from this talk. His experience growing up in the West Bank and seeing face-to-face really the horrific everyday violence that Palestinians have to live in under occupation, his experience leading the activist movement, anti-apartheid movement at Columbia, his experience working with Jewish student activists and across a whole range of intersectional causes to promote Palestine as a vision of collective liberation. His experience in the wake of that principled work dealing with the fallout from the Trump administration after he was targeted for deportation, being labeled as a threat to U.S. Foreign policy, if you can believe that. His legal battle in the courts against such a slanderous campaign and against such a really kind of hideous attempt to silence him. And his life today, his experiences having lived in the Upper Valley, having lived across all of these different places and really coming to us with many different experiences as a Buddhist and as an activist and as a Palestinian and as really a leader who we should all be looking up to. That's it for my introduction. Please give it up for Mohsen Mahdawi.
Let's see how I'm gonna deal with this thing. Test. Okay. Test. 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 Okay, so I should be. It's either I'm gonna hug this mic. Thank you, Ramsey. Thank you, Rowan, and thank you, the Palestine Solidarity Group here, PSC or Coalition, for this event. I am very delighted to be here with you, very delighted and honored to be giving this, I would call it like a crash history course for 30 minutes with my community, because this is a place that I consider home. And home for me is where I felt safe and where I felt loved. And those who surrounded me there are my people. The Upper Valley is the first place in my life that I felt safe and I felt loved. And the Upper Valley actually is a place that helped me to be centered, to be healed, to be able to hold on the principles not only of nonviolence, but the principles of compassion and empathy. Because before arriving here, as some of you might know, I came to America about 11 years ago, and I was a wounded bird, if one might say. I witnessed very painful, traumatic events in my life as a child, where I grew up in the refugee camp. And when I came here to America, I did not know how much I was carrying. It took for me to be able to feel and to process that pain and that trauma to feel safe, one, to have the level of safety, and second, to feel supported by the people around me. So in the Upper Valley is when I actually first started dealing with that trauma. I had a trauma therapist who helped me for a whole year. In the Upper Valley is when I had, and I met friends who lent me a hand. We see Dr. David Bisno, and we see Sven Carlin, and we see Rob and other friends who opened their homes to me, who coached me on applying to colleges. And Dr. Bisno here was the first actually to invite me to give a speech in America. And at that time, I was trembling and afraid that my words may not serve me. And he said, "You're going to be fine." And I didn't know actually how would I be fine. Like, how would I communicate the stories that I have witnessed in my life? How would I have the sophistication to articulate a history over 3 generations of refugees? How would I be able to appeal to people who looked very different than me? And the secret was very simple: just come with an open heart. And let those who have open hearts receive, see, and feel what you have. And that was magical. 11 years ago, and here I am back again, speaking to my community with a transformed being, I would say. But if this communicates something, it communicates, it's not about me. It's really about you. It's about the community that has opened their homes, that have offered their support in many different ways. It's about the students who have been fighting over and over and over for justice and equality for everyone and for the Palestinian people. So the timing of this is very special also, not only the location, because one, even though many of us are very suspicious of the ceasefire, we have a ceasefire, and we pray that it would last and it would be transformed to a much more sustainable resolution. The timing is very interesting as well because we've seen the decision that came out from Dartmouth, that Dartmouth refused to accept the Trump's deal. And I want to give gratitude. Yes. Yeah, this did not come easy, as you know. The past 2 years, so many students have been sanctioned here. Some were expelled. And actually, I'm glad you're back. This is first semester back for Rowan. And other professors. Yes. And the professors had to come together and to stand up for justice and to say no. Unlike Columbia University that accepted to be part of this Trojan horse, or who fell actually prey to the Trojan horse of the Trump administration, because we know what they are doing with basically the accusation of anti-Semitism and trying to control the student body and to force their way in. They are actually participating in the destruction and the deterioration of the democratic system. And it's just a Trojan horse. It's their way in. It's a gateway in. And I'm glad to see that Dartmouth has refused the deal because it's very serious. And the seriousness of it is not only going to impact the university, it will impact the whole country and eventually the whole world, knowing the positionality of the United States itself. So I will take a step back from acknowledging the space and time, and I will take you back in time to those of you, many students. I just met some freshmen here. I'm very glad that you're here taking your, bringing your energy from other things that you could be part of. So I will share with you a little bit about my background. I was born and raised in a refugee camp as a third generation. And why a refugee, and a refugee from where, is part of this story. 1948, my family, my great-grandfather was expelled, kicked out, forced out of his homeland, which was called Khalid, and which is called now Netanya in Israel. It was a Mediterranean town just about 5 miles away from the Mediterranean Sea. When they were forced out, they thought it's going to be 2 weeks, perhaps 2 months, maybe 2 years. Now 77 years, and we are still waiting for our return, and Israel has denied our rights to return to our homeland. So as a third generation, I was born and raised there, and I've witnessed certain events that are very different than what my father and grandfather have witnessed. Now, for some of you, can you show me just hands, how many of you visited refugee camps in Palestine or Lebanon or Syria? Okay. So it might worth it to share with you what a refugee camp might feel and look like. The United Nations in 1948 rented parcels of land in the West Bank, in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Syria, and in Jordan. At that time, there was about 700,000 Palestinians who were expelled, kicked out of their homelands. And the lands that the United Nations rented, the pieces of land, they were rented for 99 years. They were thinking long term. While my great-grandfather and my grandfather were thinking it's going to take 2 weeks, 2 years, 2 months. So the refugee camps developed over time. For example, the one that I was born in, now the space of it is about 63 acres. And how many people? More than 10,000 people live on 63 acres. This was shocking to me, especially when I decided to purchase a piece of land in West Fairley. And it was like, oh, this is about 20 acres. And I wanted to compare it and to see how large is the refugee camp. So when I converted it, this is how I learned it's 63 acres. But you can imagine it's very dense. I call it the concrete jungle or the wasp nest. If you walk into the camp is divided into 5 streets. Each street roughly between 12 to 15 feet wide. And it is divided in different, like each section, block between the streets has hundreds, if not thousands of alleys. And each alley is roughly, it can span from 1 foot wide to maybe 5-6 feet wide. And some alleys you have to walk like sideways to be able to get from one spot to another if you want to cross through the block. Now what is interesting, you can imagine, because it's all concrete jungle now, before it became a concrete jungle, it actually was developed from tents to metal sheet houses to mud houses, and the population continued growing, and now we have the concrete jungle. And actually, we have also now 5.5 million Palestinian refugees from 700,000, roughly, 1948. Now the population is 5.5 million. About 2.2 million used to live in refugee camps. Now considering Gaza, we're talking about roughly 4 million Palestinians between refugee camps and homelessness who don't have homes to live in. And this is all because of the creation of Israel and what Israel has imposed on the Palestinian people. Now, as you can imagine, the refugee camp is very dense, thousands of alleys, 5 streets dividing it. The sunlight does not get into every house. There are many houses don't get sunlight. The sound, the noise, you hear arguments, you hear the sound of your neighbors, there is no privacy. If somebody gets hurt inside the house, you would have to get them through the walls, one through the other, and you bring a sledgehammer and you break kind of a window-like space from one wall to another until you get them to the street, so you can carry them on a stretcher. The healthcare system, which is the UNRWA has been providing, very basic, very necessary. The UNRWA used to provide a range of things before, a little bit of food here, a little bit of nutrition for children, and a little bit of health care, and some management. That has been shrunk in a very significant way. But a doctor would see roughly in the refugee camp per day, on average, about 100 patients with basic medication. The space in the camp, there is not much place to play, actually, except in the streets. For example, the house that I was born and raised in, it consists of 2 rooms, 15 by 15 feet. There is no living room, tiny kitchen, tiny bathroom, and I shared it with 8 siblings and 2 parents. So you can imagine, in the same room, we would sleep when we lay down the mattresses that we piled during the day. We lay them down like a puzzle and we sleep on the mattresses. We would eat, it's our dining room, the same room, so you make the mattresses look like a U shape and you put the food in the middle. We would study, that is also our study space. We didn't have offices or anything. And we would play in the same room. So you can imagine that's a difficult life to start with. And this is the situation in now 58 refugee camps between the areas that I mentioned, which is West Bank, Gaza, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. And actually, what I learned recently, that the situation in some refugee camps, especially in Lebanon, are much worse than the refugee camp that I grew up in. So to start with, this is the level of pain, of misery, of suffering that people live under. There is poverty, there is a lack of safety and security. And when I was just starting to open my eyes on the reality, to basically become conscious of my reality, I was 11 years old in 2000, and that's when the second intifada started, the uprising. I think of the name intifada and uprising does not actually give the right description to what happened, because it was provoked by one of the Israeli officials at that time, and there was a huge imbalance in terms of the power. It felt to me and to so many Palestinians that it was imposed on the Palestinian people, and we feel a prey for it because also Palestinians reacted to that intifada, but it was bloody and it was painful. And many people, when they talk about the intifada, they look at numbers and they say, this is the number of people who were killed, and this is what happened, and these are the images, but they don't understand the depth of such an experience on the life of a child. For me, it was such a traumatic, painful period. As a 10, 11 years old child, I see my best friend getting shot in front of my eyes. And you don't know how to make sense of this reality now, life or death. when you see your best friend laying down, they get motivated and they want to act. And they often forget to check with Palestinians and to center Palestinian voices. And Palestinian voices are an array of experiences. You get those who were born in the West Bank. Even in the West Bank, people in towns and cities have different experiences with For example, the people in towns are the ones who face the settlers. In camps, they don't face the settler oppression, they face the army oppression. You get Palestinians in Gaza who I am not qualified to talk about their needs and pain and to carry their voice. So I have to always check with them, even as a Palestinian. We get also Palestinians in other refugee camps and in other countries and even in America. Each has different angle. So for the students and for people who are working for Palestine, I urge you to include the voices of Palestinians, to listen to them, and to know that there is no one voice. There are differences in the experience. So you can't isolate one or exclude one. So this is one. Two, we have a lot of understanding of anti-colonial movements. And the understanding that we have is we either break the system and declare victory, or we would be defeated. This is the anti-colonial studies, especially settler colonial studies, that you have to fight until the end and the settlers have to be kicked out and so on. And I would say this worked for a certain period and time, and now we have to function within a framework of international law and human rights. Even though it's not fully just, international law, but it's the best system that we have universally right now in order to achieve justice. And the project of decolonization does not necessarily need win or lose, victory or loss, because decolonization itself gives you the idea that you either win or lose. And it could be a win-win when the colonizer or the person who's serving the system of colonization start shifting their mentality and method, and they change and dismantle the system and create a system that's more just. So ground yourself in international law and the human rights, and know it's not perfect, and it needs a lot of your effort and energy and contribution to make it a better one, to fill the hole, to make it forcible, and to be able to apply it equally to the rest of the world so we don't have to use force. And the last point is divestment is a powerful tool and must be used at every level. And when you talk about divestment, keep in mind it's not only divestment and investment. You divest from those who violate and break human rights, any entities that further the genocide and the apartheid in the case of Palestinians, and you invest in entities that actually advance humanity and help humanity and abide by human rights and so on. And this has to be applied on every level. And to push for it, you have to ground yourself in values and the principles. And you refer to the values and principles. You don't make exceptions. That's it.
So this will be our last question before we open it up to the audience for questions. But of course, the student movement for Palestine has existed on our college campuses long before October 7th and has historically been led by international and non-citizen students who often have the deepest connections to the region. Under the current Trump administration, the degree of repression, though, has caused a lot of non-citizen students to feel very anxious and as though affiliation with Palestine in any way is endangering them. How do you recommend students navigate living under this degree of oppression, and what advice do you have for non-citizen students who deeply care about Palestine but are concerned about ICE and the level of repression.
Thank you. So for some of you who are not aware, students now who enter the United States, international students, get scanned. All of their social media gets scanned, and they sign on a note. It's called 211G. That if you violate something that the United States does not like, it's not a law, something that might deem with similar to what happened with me, that it's not aligned with foreign policy, they would revoke your visa and send you out. So what the government has done, they have actually succeeded in creating an atmosphere of fear and suppression and repression. And this is literally chills of speech, which is so dangerous because in any democratic system, there are principles and rights. Without those rights, there is no democracy. The right to speak, the right of assembly, the right of press, the right of religion, having religion or religion, and the right of expression. And what this government has done, they have canceled the rights for a whole population of students, technically, who come here to this country to enrich American universities and exchange with them because they learn from Americans and American universities and they exchange with their experience, which is valued. So now they can't speak. And this is the situation at Columbia too. Many international students come to me and they say, we want to help, but we are in a very vulnerable situation. If the government knows that we are helping and supporting, we would be deported, or they would not extend or give us a visa. So how do you organize, how do you work on the Palestinian issue with international students? It's a very tough environment. I think every American should be concerned right now, because the free speech as a principle is 45 words, actually, the First Amendment, 45 words, and it protects the speech, not the speaker, and now they're going after international students, permanent residents, naturalized citizens, journalists, immigrants, and soon everybody else. They're already doing it. So how would you do it? You connect, you educate first, and you tell, and you share with the community this fear. You create awareness, because the community becomes a protector if there is a violation and if the government is coming after people here. This is one. Two, you create safe spaces. So when there are demonstrations, there is no need for international students to show their faces there, especially if there is, especially if like it's related to Palestine. It's very scary. I mean, the use of masks could be helpful. And the last one is to create room for international students where they can contribute without being at the forefront or out-facing. And that could include writing, that could include proposing ideas, communication, organizing. They don't have to be the face of something. So this is how we're working around it at Columbia. It's very disappointing and very unfortunate that we have to navigate this in the 21st century in America. But unfortunately, it's a reality, and it's a red flag, huge red flag.
Everyone, please join me in giving a round of applause. For anyone who has questions or would like to stick around to hear some audience questions, we're going to be taking those now. I will ask that you say it as loud as you can, and if not, then I'll relay it back to him and he'll answer it here. Yes, please.
Hi, Mohsen. It's always great to see you. Thank you so much for being here and for your example and your words. I wondered if you would fill us in on your case. I know you were just in court with Reza Ozturk. I also know that your friend and comrade Mahmoud Galil was in court just 2 days ago. So we'd love to know where the case stands.
Good to see you, Annalise. Thank you. So the question is, what's the update on my case? The short version of it, short version or long version?
Well, tell
Okay.
the story.
Okay. The short version of it, that the case is now about my freedom. So the district court, for some of you who are not aware, released me under something called habeas corpus, which protects people from being detained unjustly if they are not a danger to the community or a flight risk. These are the two basic principles. And the district court declared that what happened with me is a violation. It seems like it's a violation of the First Amendment, reciting that there was. It reminded the judge of the Red Scare and the McCarthy time and era. It was very clear that they attacked me because of my protest and free speech, and they say that in the Rubio Memorandum. Now, the government is so cruel to the point that they don't want to litigate the case while I'm free. They want me and Mahmoud to be detained, and they're arguing that if there is an immigration order, a removal proceeding, they can detain somebody if they have a visa or a green card, any non-citizen as a start. They can detain the person, put them in prison, and the issue, if it's a violation of the First Amendment, will not be discussed or argued until it makes it to the Court of Appeals, which means that somebody could be detained in violation the government could violate somebody's rights according to the Constitution. They can put them in prison for weeks, months, or years until the case makes it to the Courts of Appeals. And then the Courts of Appeals, a board of judges or a panel of judges would say, sorry, this was unjust and get out. That's what the government is trying to do. So now my case was heard in the Second Circuit, which is in New York. For students, just to explain to you what is Second Circuit and what is circuit level. There are 3 levels of courts in this country. The first one, district courts. The second level that sees any appeals from the district court, circuit courts, which is courts of appeals. And the third one is the Supreme Court. And if you have issue in one, you raise it all the way to the Supreme Court. So now the case was heard in the middle, which is the circuit level, the Second Circuit, and we are waiting for a decision. Now, we don't know where is this gonna go, because the panel of judges who heard the case, they all are conservative and were appointed by Trump. 2 were appointed by Trump, 1 by George Bush. So there is a little bit of fear there about if they will politicize the courts, and that's what Trump's administration is trying to do. They're trying to break the system of checks and balances, which the courts are very significant. That is a hard balance and checks on the orders. They're trying to politicize it so they can do whatever they want, and they're trying to also overflood other courts that they can't control. So we don't know when the decision is going to come out. Mahmoud's case was heard 3 or 4 days ago, kind of on similar arguments that they want him to be in prison and about jurisdictional issues. We don't know which decision will come out first, most likely the one related to me. And in case it is in favor, if it is, or when it is in my favor, the decision, most likely the government will appeal it to the Supreme Court, and that's going to be the final decision. Sorry, I gave the long story, not the short one. Started with the short one. Please.
This is just following up on Annalise's question, that if the decision against you, is it possible for the whole district court to hear the case en banc?
That's right, yes.
And how likely is that?
Yeah.
We know people, former
Yeah.
Dartmouth students, Beth Robinson is on the second district.
Right,
First open out lesbian
yeah,
within an appellate court.
yeah.
So is there hope in that happens?
Okay. So I am now putting my lawyer's hat on, even though I'm not a lawyer. Yeah, the process is, if it came against me, we have the chance to appeal it to the en banc, which is like every judge, roughly every judge on that circuit have the right to wait on it. I might not be accurate about it, but roughly speaking, they can wait on it and decide to take the case or not. And if they take it, it would be a big panel arguing, and they would issue a decision, and most likely we would win that decision. Because there was already a decision by the en banc about the first step, and it was 8 in my favor, 2 against. So there is a little bit of hope. And what is the chance of it? It's not that common for the en banc to take a case. It depends on the circuits, but in the second circuit in New York, they usually take 2 to 3 cases maximum per year. So, but this is such a big case, because if they succeed with me, every non-citizen would be actually in danger, because they can imprison them and they can stay in a long time in prison until the case makes it to the second circuit or to the circuit level.
Questions? Please.
I just want to talk to the students. I'm with Upper Valley Coalition. We're connected to all of the activist groups in the Upper Valley. I have to leave now, but if you can talk to Tracy, Kathleen, before they leave, we will get you connected, so we can work together.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening very much.
Is there any other questions? Speak now, whoever will do, please. Just kidding, you can stay afterwards. Okay, I think that's the end. Perfect, 5:30. Thank you all so much.